So the way I got this harp was really interesting. At least I think so. And you might enjoy it. Harps seem to have their own little, you can call it karma, their own little journey through life. And some harps go from one person to another several times in their lives as harps. And this one came to me when I lived up in New Hampshire. I had a studio that I lived in my studio, but it was open to have students there. And I also had a harp showroom there and sold lots of different wonderful harps. And one day, receiving this phone call from a woman who really wanted to sell this harp. It turns out that her daughter had studied harp, and then her daughter had gone off to school. And so she was no longer playing the harp, and the woman had been going through a divorce and was concerned about finances, and she realized that this might help her on her way if she was to sell this harp. Well, I think that was a great idea. I'm sad that she was going through that, but it did free up the harp to come to a place where she was going to get played more. Now, when she first brought it to me, her son brought it to me and he unpacked it. There was just something about it. She looked ugly, unloved, and she needed to have the love. You know, she was a tree before and interacting in nature, and then she'd been stuck in a closet for years, not being played. Anyhow, I spent time with her. I oiled her and got her tuned up and tuned her up and tuned her up because she hadn't been tuned in so long. It was hard for her to stay in tune. But ultimately, she started staying in tune. And as this process went along, I went from thinking she was an ugly harp to falling in love with her. But my finances weren't such that I could purchase this harp for myself. I needed to sell it in order to help this woman get the money that she needed, get the harp a home, and also to help my finances a little bit as well. And so as it turns out, one of my students, who's a fabulous student, she fell in love with the harp as well. She saw its potential, and she was a multi-instrumentalist, very talented. And so one New Year's Eve, she bought it. And I was really happy because she said it's staying in the family this way, and because I had grown attached to her. And I'd always, after working with her, I always put her in the same spot in the studio. It was her spot. And anyhow, so my friend, student, bought this harp and took her home. Actually, I delivered it to her, and she played it, and she played it. Well, her next lesson, she came to the lesson, and she didn't bring the harp. She didn't need to. I had lots of harps there, and she was playing as a student that day. The harp she was playing on was a Merlin harp, which is also a wonderful harp. And so a few times during the class, I forgot to tell you a particularly important part. Okay, so I'm going to rewind my mind. Just before her lesson, I stood in this spot that I had been keeping this harp at, and I just felt this pang in my heart, like, why did you sell this harp? This was your harp. You were supposed to have this harp. And I thought, well, it's gone to a really good home, and that's good. And then the doorbell rang, and it was my student. Okay, so fast forward now. She's in class, and she says, that harp, it hurts my fingers. I thought, oh, interesting, being that I just had that experience. So I said, oh, interesting, let's talk about that later. And 2 more times, she interrupted her class to let me know that that harp hurts her fingers. So at the end of the class, I said, let's talk. And so what it is we agreed on was that we could trade. She could have the Merlin harp because she liked that harp as well. And she'd already played it enough to know that it doesn't hurt her hands. She loves the sound of it. It's a great bass tone to it. And it's a beautiful harp. And And so I was so happy to get this one back. And it was like, yeah, that's my harp. Her name, her public name is Siobhan. But you know, it is said, that every harp has a name. And the beautiful thing about that is that the harp will tell you the harp's name. So I always tell my students, when they get a new harp, to spend time playing with it and feel the essence and see if he or she tells you the name. And then, according to Celtic tradition, once your harp tells you its name, you're not to tell anyone. It's private between you and your harp. Well, you might say, well, you just told her name was Siobhan. That is. That's her public name. So I invite you to listen to your harp, to listen with your whole being, not just your ears. She may not tell you through your ears. She may tell you her name when he or she may tell you their name when you're playing or when you're doing something next to the harp. You may hear the sound. Or you might be taking a walk in nature and you may hear a name, and that could be the name of the harp. So it's up to you to inquire as to what the real name of your harp is. And then after that, you can make up and you can decide what the public name is. Got it? Or perhaps she'll tell you what her public name is as well. But for now, keep on listening, enjoy your new harp, or your old harp. If you've never asked it what its name is, you just identified it with a name that you wanted to give it. That can still be the public name, but perhaps you want to find out what the harp identifies as. Yes? As we're in this time of people choosing what their identity is and sharing what they want to be identified as, I offer you to do that for your harp as well. Have a happy afternoon or a harpy afternoon. Speak to you soon. Bye for now. Enjoy finding your harp's name.